Well, hello, everyone. Dr. Jack Tips here. I'm so pleased to get to visit with you a little bit and share maybe some quirky insights as well as some extremely valuable, important information that I hope can help you in your practice, help you get better results. That's what I'm here to do. And so here we are, heart health. The pulse of life. There's a real interesting phenomenon to me from the big overview about heart health. And the heart has the ability, amazing ability to repair. I mean, itself. It's like a tongue or even the liver or even a thyroid. It's just a tissue that repairs, that has a built-in repair mechanism. And so with a tissue that really was made to get wound up at the breath of life and then run and literally have the strength and internal fortitude to outlive the human body. Why is heart disease such a big factor? And I'll tell you, one of the things we might want to look at is to realize that the key to heart disease and heart health is nutrition. It's herbs, it's vitamins, it's minerals, it's good eating, it's exercise, it's all the lifestyle factors that we in natural health preach and go on and on about. And yet it's our bailiwick. And I want you to know that right now, with the severity of heart issues and the lack of genuine healing that's occurring in the modality of most people's choices, it's incumbent upon us, the natural health practitioner, to step up, to seize the day, to shine in this area where we really can shine, because science has given us a grouping of nutrients. You know, you've probably heard of vitamin E and carnitine and so forth. You may have heard of hawthorn berry and things that there's things that in nature that directly support the heart. So let's look here at some facts. We got to look at trends. We're going all the way back to 1930. Now that was, maybe probably before you were born. We won't talk about me. But 1930, there was only 3,000 approximately people in the entire United States that had a heart attack. That's like 0.00019, not even a smidgen of the population had these things occur called heart attacks. Okay, that's 1930s. Now, when we get up to 1950, all of a sudden, the rate of heart attacks is growing much faster than the population. Why? What was happening? What was happening in the post-industrial revolution around the 1950s? The United States was coming out of World War II. We've seen a lot of social changes going on. Females of the species were becoming integrated into the workforce. And think of all the social change. It was the start of the baby boomer generation. But what happened by 1950 that suddenly heart attacks outpaced population growth? That simply means it's getting worse. What is it? By 2010, it's probably about the time you were born, there was over 1.25 million people, a 200% increase on top of the already massive increase that was occurring. Now we really have an alert. We have an alarm going off. Heart disease is skyrocketing, statistically much more than the increase in population. That means there's something else. It's not just that people are being born and there's more people, so there's more heart attacks going on. There's something going on. What could it be? Could it be exercise or lack thereof? Could it be diet? Medical incompetency? Is it stress? Is bad genes? What are we going to determine? What is the cause? Because that's the true mission of the doctor, the true mission of the true doctor, the teacher, the healer, to address the cause. Something happened during this time as well, where people's brains got skewed and they forgot to look at the cause, and they were happy to put a Band-Aid on the effects. This is a national delusion that people live under, that, oops, we don't know the cause. We all get preached, no known cause, no known cure, but here's a drug that'll hide your symptoms. Well, by last year, 3 million and a quarter, 3 million people had heart attacks. I mean, that's like everybody. We all know somebody, don't we, in our population that had a heart attack, at least in the last 10 years. This is a pandemic. Okay, well, we got our thinking caps on. Why would this be occurring, and what are we going to do about it? Because there's other statistics that we need to look at. Okay, today, 30 million U.S. citizens are diagnosed with heart disease. Boy, I tell you, that's a hopping vocation there if you're a person who can take care of the ticker. Now, it's also a sign that as we've gone through our time together, from our 3,000 people in a year in the United States having heart attacks to 13 million people in the U.S. with heart disease, there's blatantly obvious somebody's losing the war, right? It's medical failure to address the cause, because we know in our natural healing model that if we could just address the cause, the body can affect the cure. That's the pattern. That is our God-given ability within each body. Okay, so what do you think here? What's the leading cause of death today? These are just straight up statistics. Is it heart disease? Is it cancer? Or is it iatrogenic? What do you think? Well, the stats are going to show us that it's going to be the heart disease. Now, you might wonder, what's iatrogenic? And that's a big word that you're not familiar with. It just means medical cause deaths, overdose on those prescriptives, and oops, pulled the wrong medicine in the hospital. Oops, we shouldn't have tried that surgery to get that liposuction going, because now the person's dead. And so the fact is, though, when people have heart disease and then they die, it's highly likely it's going to be attributed to heart disease. It's never at that point attributed to the medication. And so iatrogenic is a term that it could be vying for number 2. It could be vying for number 1. According to researcher Gary Null, he started pulling up the facts, and he made a movement to try to get iatrogenic disease placed at number 1. Well, you can imagine how that campaign went. But you know what? Let's go back to our 1930s. All along the way, there are medical publications that leave a trail of research that reveals the primary cause of heart attacks. And we also then should look, well, is medicine doing the best they can do with what they have to work with? Maybe this is some big mystery. People are not really able to drop naked into the ocean and breathe underwater. There's just things. Maybe this is just one of those things. It's this multi-billion-dollar cardiology industry really addressing the cause. What we do, we have this timeline, we have this trail, we have hard science research that had a vector from 1930 right on in today. And all we want to do is put that line on paper and see if the scientific and medical response has followed that line of thought. Okay, so the conventional theory and practice, the theory and practice that's behind those appalling statistics are, number 1, the arteries become blocked with plaque. So somebody's eating Elmer's glue, or blame it on cholesterol, those foam cells, the free radical oxidation, and even worse, get out there and blame nature's perfect egg and other wholesome things. We had the Native Americans that were literally would trip over their own feet to get some buffalo fat, and yet we were created to be a fat phobia society. And the more we feared that slice of bacon or that fat on the meat, the more the health statistics got more and more appalling. We just have to sometimes pull our heads out of pull the head out of the dark and look at the broad facts. So after blaming cholesterol, at least now there's an enemy. We can all point the finger at this appalling statistic, and we can also exonerate the goodly doctors that are out there. They're fighting the good fight. They're going to kill cholesterol, and everybody's going to get tested, and everybody's going to talk about cholesterol, and everyone's going to eat cholesterol-free seed oils. Everyone's going to buy their motor oil that's cholesterol free. And so the theory is that the coronary artery becomes blocked. Now get this, it's the coronary artery. Okay, that's a particular artery. That's right ventricle. The clot shuts off the blood supply to the heart. And now the person keels over. The heart starves for oxygen. The cells die. And maybe if they're rushed to the hospital in time, the good doctors can save them, and so forth. Well, here we go. Heart health, only 1 out of 4 infarctions have anything to do with this theory of the artery spinning up a clot and the clot getting stuck at the heart and the person clutching their chest and staggering around, falling over, and dying. Here we go. The study, 25 years of studies were looked at. The relationship of coronary thrombosis, that's your clotty heart attack, to coronary atherosclerosis, that's the thickening of the arteries, the blocking of the arteries, and ischemic heart disease. Necroscopy study means they looked at autopsies. They looked at all the dead people that died of heart disease over a period of 25 years. And this was published in Medical Sciences in 1960. So that's a while ago. This is not the most current research, but it takes us between 1930 and 1960. So this study fills in 30 years. That's more than like 1.5 generations of human beings. And here we go. The 25%, treat the coronary thrombosis has spawned via pile driver marketing, the dominant research avenue. It's all people are looking at. Big Pharma says, oh, go find a drug that we can sell that kills cholesterol. And other research that would be looking at the 75% is kind of languishing, not being funded. And so here we go. We have the statins, we have the stents, we have the surgeries, we have expensive prescriptives with horrible side effect. We're looking at a $60 billion business that doesn't cure anything. Holy cow. Are people under, I don't know, kind of a they live in delusion of some sort, right? Okay, so here we go. Wait a minute. 25%, that's still significant, right? 1 out of 4 heart attacks. Oh, maybe they got that clot. We'll blast that out in the media. They got a big glob in there and it almost, killed old grandpa, but they got enough blood thinners in there to that it didn't stick and block. And here we go. Now we're going to move forward just a little bit here. And we're still on the same research. We're still between 1930 and 1960. The time between infarction, that's your heart attack, and death determines the amount of blockage. What? Wait a minute. I thought we were being told blockage caused the infarction. And now it says the time between infarction, okay, person goes, I have a heart attack, and death determines the blockage, how long they live. If a person dies within an hour, there's only found in the autopsy studies, 16% of those people had arterial occlusion. Now that's getting kind of small now. It's like what happens to the other 86% of the population. I mean, that's a lot of stuff that's not being addressed. But if the person had died after 24 hours, they lingered, the paramedics were there, injections were being injected, and the mask was being put on, and probably a tube down the throat, and all kinds of stuff. kept that person going for 24 hours, and now there was 53% of those. So you have to average the statistics there to come up with that 25%. But here's the thing, most blockage occurs after the infarction. This influences statistics that are somewhat skewed. So, the people that are screaming, follow the science, follow the science. Yeah, well, here the science is kind of blatantly misleading, and it's missing the point. So let's move forward now. We're going to get on up from 1960. Now we're going to cross into the new century here with the research. And here this research comes forward. Evidence from randomized trials of statin drugs, pravastatin, simvastatin, atorvastatin, for cardiovascular disease prevention. Now we're looking at, do these statins prevent cardiovascular disease like they tell us they do on TV? And the conclusion of the scientific research study published in the American Heart Journal, holy cow, bona fide, peer-reviewed, triple, placeboed, everything you could want in a study. And it concludes evidence from published statin randomized placebo-controlled trials suggest that statin drugs, when used at their standard dosage, show no statistically significant difference in their effect on long-term cardiovascular prevention. Oh, now we've got a multi-billion-dollar industry that's not doing a doggone thing. I know there are. You can also go and pull studies. So as be fair, you can pull studies that say this group of people on statins, they somehow get the data. Hopefully it's not grossly skewed, that it does help a wee bit. So there are two sides to the argument, and time will tell. But let's go back. Let's find that timeline. We're going to set our Wayback Machine here to 10 years after heart disease went ballistic. Okay, 1940, right? 1930, we saw 3,000 people die of heart attacks. Then by 1950, it had increased 4 times faster than the population growth. So we're right in the middle of that time frame here. We have enough demographic, we have enough statistical sampling that this great doctor, wonderful Dr. Berthold Kern, decided that he knew a thing or two here. He conducted thousands of autopsies, and he could not confirm the coronary obstruction hypothesis. Okay, he's probably the leading medical doctor in the world who's actually looking at what's going on with heart attacks, and he says, I can't confirm. He discovered something in his own research. Very brilliant man, metabolic acidosis as a cause. He found the left ventricle deprived of ATP, that's adenosine triphosphate to you and me, and O2, which is oxygen molecule to you and me. That is lactic acid buildup, kind of choked the ATP process, choked the oxygen, created a lack of energy, created acidosis, right? Lactic acid. And he saw that the site in the heart of infarction was not due to the obstruction. Holy cow, here it comes. This was peer-reviewed. It was published in the Journal of the American Heart Association, called Circulation. Here's his conclusion. These data support the concept that an occlusive coronary thrombosis does not play a primary role in the pathogenesis of heart attacks. Well, something's off now, isn't it? We have everybody saying one thing, but the facts say something else. But don't wait, that's true science. That's what they're telling us, is all backed by science. Here's the situation. We have to go back now to some fundamental anatomy of the heart and the body, because this thing called anastomosis, it can be with the kidneys, it can be with other tissues, but it's certainly predominant with the heart. And it is the connection of two divergent structures, two, let's say, blood vessels, two capillaries, two arteries, two veins, And by design, the heart has its own bypass channels to deliver blood and oxygen to the muscle, right? It only makes sense that if this heart was so vulnerable, where it's the number one killer of humanity, that's not a very good feature for nature to condone now, is it? And the fact is, nature doesn't condone it. In fact, nature had a backup plan, should somehow, you end up with a big old clot in your leg, which is a normal natural process, particularly if Erg the caveman was wounded by a stegosaurus tail. I think I have my timeline off there a little bit. Let's say a woolly mammoth swat to the leg, and that blood clot traveled up to the heart, worked its way up there slowly, that nature had a backup plan to save his life. Kern saw that people with arterial narrowing, so here they are, they're on the fast food diet. They're eating the post-industrial foods that Dr. Weston Price showed us were ruining people's teeth and dental arches and health back in 1920. He saw that people with arterial narrowing had increased collateral vessels to protect the heart. Now, what we're saying here is kind of like an angiogenesis, right? That the body starts realizing that the heart could be deprived of its own blood supply, that it's got to have oxygen, it's got to have ATP, it's got to have the blood nutrients. And so with that clot there, or the narrowing, and the body realizing now it's got to crank a little more blood pressure to get that blood moving through the constriction, that it starts building connections so that if there is any blockage, there's a way around it. This is just a complex detour system. Okay, so now, did anybody corroborate this? We don't want to just, bet our hearts and lives on the good Dr. Kearns, right? In the American Journal of Cardiology, 1988. Okay, that's a sweet spot between the 60s and the 2010. There was a big study, the Renthrop study. It proved Kearns' findings were accurate. Salute Dr. Kearns. He was on to something. Dr. Stephen Epstein in the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute in 2014. That's right here in the current times. In advanced states of narrowing of the coronary arteries, the supply of blood to the heart muscles is fully assured via collaterals. That's the blood vessels that connect, that enlarge naturally in response to the blockage. Additional finding, the more the coronary arteries narrow, the less danger there is of a heart attack. Wait a minute, that's not quite what we're being told. For everybody on a blood thinner, for everybody on a statin, for everybody on, such cardiology cocktails. This is not what they're being told, but these happen to be the science, has happened to be the findings. So I'm sure there's some other science that spins and spawns the mistakes. But why? Why would metabolic acidosis be ignored? I wonder what you think. Let's ponder that a minute. Or we're ignoring something called metabolic acidosis. They say in a good detective movie, follow the money. Why would this be? Why would this be? I'll tell you a little bit more about the good Dr. Kern. He ran his clinical career from 1947 to 1968. He saw 15,000 patients. Of his 15,000 patients, none of them had fatal heart attacks, and a mere 20 had some little infarctions. In the German government stats, which means the population that Dr. Kern was serving per 15,000 people, they had 520 heart attacks per 15,000 people and 120 deaths. So right there, we could start waving the banner for Dr. Kern, and anyone with any degree of sanity should be knocking on his door. If they're a physician that cares about their patients, they would be knocking on his door and say, hey, doc, you're doing something. I'm not. You're doing something. The rank and file people are not. What do you say? Would you teach a seminar? Would you share your information? Could I apprentice with you for a year? I too would like to see 15,000 people and not be dealing with heart attacks and have people have more optimal health. Anyway, Dr. Kern went on to develop a medication that he started putting his people on, and it was an herbal preparation. It was made from the strophanthus, which is a crazy herb, right? It's the poison arrow kind of lily plant. And but when you use a micro dose, and there were rigorous double-blind studies that showed it had no side effects, but he found a medicine in nature, natural, and it was almost in a homeopathic dose. You know, it was just like so easy to grow, obtain, to synthesize into a medicine, and people didn't even have to swallow it. They would put the strophanthus in DMSO, which is a somewhat benign chemical of the printing ink cleaning industry, and they just rub it on their skin, and the DMSO would take it into the bloodstream, and they would then could join the healthy, happy, no fatal heart attack crowd. So he had 15,000 patients living without the fear of, oh my God, it's going to, my heart's going to give out, like we're taught on the TV commercials. So I'm going to bring in another little snippet. I just throw a lot of interesting things out. I hope you're comfortable with it. I'm not marching through molecular biology for you here, because you don't need me to regurgitate what you could learn for yourself. But here I want to point out another really fun kind of doctor here, Dr. Alexis Carrel. Now, he was looking for sort of the fountain of youth, the key to life, the key to perpetual longevity. And he just took a little chicken heart and kept it alive for 27 years. Now, you have to realize a chicken only lives 3 or 4 years. So, we try to tell the kids not to be too attached to the rooster, because, they live even shorter than dog and cat years and horse years. And so 27 years for a chicken is just like, wow. And he was basically demonstrating, as you see his picture here with his little beanie cap on, that he demonstrates that heart cells regenerate. Well, this is important because here we have a tissue that can regenerate itself. And it wasn't just saline solution. He put nutrients, like real vitamin, mineral nutrients, the kind that the body looks for. He didn't use any drugs. And the human heart is designed to keep on ticking even longer than your body's lifespan. So if he had your heart, he could keep it ticking for 1,000 years. And you wouldn't be around to use it, but there it would be performing its duty and saluting every morning. And his staff came in and would, change out the saline and take care of this little thing. And they did it for 27 years. When he moved away to another post, the staff decided it was too much trouble, and they let the little throbbing heart in the petri dish, they let it expire. And so else the 27 years, could have gone on. It might still be ticking today. So why is heart disease the number one cause of death? Assuming we rule out the concept of iatrogenic, it's just too hard to get to stats when, death certificates show one thing and maybe reality is another. So why is heart disease the number one cause of death? The doggone throbbing muscle can regenerate itself. How are we so far out of whack that we're having children? I'm reading now, a 14-year-old dies of a heart attack. Of course, that may be after some, an immunization or shot or something. And gosh, LeBron James's son and so forth. These people are having heart trouble at a way early age. What is going on out there? Where is the smoking gun in our society? I'm going to wander off now into another concept because I want you to have these concepts and just have them loosely sitting on the shelf in your brain. And then we're going to kind of use them as the ambiance as we're going to hone in, and I'm going to show you one thing, one formula that has to be one of the most amazing general heart nutritional support formula that's available to health practitioners. And I bet you know already where you can find it. Now, here we go. I want you to meet Asclepius. Now, he was the god of medicine. He was both Greek and Roman. Each one just spelled it a little different. And in fact, the big boss, Zeus, got a little miffed with Asclepius and killed him. And he just hurled one of those lightning bolts and fried his self right there walking along the ground because Zeus feared that Asclepius would make humans immortal. And that is because Asclepius, being the god of medicine, was able to practice preventative medicine so people didn't get sick. And if they did get sick, he was able to practice the cure of disease. And he passed this information along to his two daughters. One daughter, he named Panacea, and she was the cure. And she sat around all day without a lot to do, other waiting for someone to become sick. And you'll see that she's got her half of the caduceus there, and she's going to take the wisdom of the serpent there and make it into medicine. And his other daughter was named Hygeia. That's where we get our word hygiene. And she worked with prevention. So while Hygeia was out there with the other half of the caduceus, preventing disease, Panacea was waiting to find the cure. And together they represented Asclepius. Even after he was made into a French fry by Zeus, they carried the two-part of the message. And you'll notice then the caduceus is a natural health symbol. It's the wisdom. It has the 7 chakras. It has the yin and the yang side. It has the panacea. It has the hygeia. And this becomes a model, not for modern medicine, because there is nothing to do with the caduceus about giving toxic drugs to people. It was about prevention, which obviously modern medicine has not done. All we have to do is cite the statistics, and it doesn't have the panacea, the cure, because all we have to do is look at the statistics. But you go to the natural health people that are addressing the cause, that practice prevention, that teach diet and exercise, and then have the herbs and the nutrients and the techniques to help affect cure of body, mind, and spirit. We see that the caduceus is actually the symbol of the natural health practice, and it's been usurped or stolen is also an applicable word, and became the motto. But when medicine stole the caduceus, they were a lot more open to treating the individual and to having the individual doctor use his own brain to help. And they weren't just working in isolated specialities, playing out of the same playbook that was taught to them by the pharmaceutical industry. So really the older, old-timey doctors were, beautiful souls who were truly, at least in the research studies I do, and I go back and I read these old medical journals, and I find that they're often very heart-led people who care about people, and they would do anything. They would use an herb. They would go get the Lamatium dissectum during the flu epidemic, the influenza epidemic, and so forth. They would do what they could do to help humanity. So here we go. I want to throw out another thought. Okay, let's put this on the shelf here to make sure that we have to accommodate everybody. We're building our panel of judges here, and we want to win the score of 10 with each judges when we get up and sing our song here. And so here we just want to recognize that according to modern medicine, all chronic degenerative and all autoimmune diseases are now considered to be mitochondrial diseases. The mitochondrial DNA sends messages to the body's nuclear DNA. The mitochondria is the energy, the ATP energy engines, the dynamos, and when they start to bonk, they have to use, let's say, high electricity, as you see there in the picture. They have to use free radicals. They have to use volatile, dangerous things, just like if you had an electric generator, whether it's Nikolai Tesla sitting next to his Tesla cage all lit up with electricity, or whether it's Thomas Alva, the Edison cranking direct current out there with substations and people getting fried and so forth. It's always a danger to be dealing with that type of energy creation. You think of nuclear reactors today and the high level of danger when the great wisdom and oversight of science builds those things on a fault line in Japan. Okay, so here we go. You're gonna have to guess it now. We have a critically important question here. What organ, gland, tissue uses the most ATP energy in the human body? Is it the brain? Wow, yeah, that's a live wire for sure. Is it the heart? Is it the liver? That's important. Liver is our lifeline. What is it? What could it be? Okay, you've had enough of me there. Of course, it's the heart. The heart is the energy hog. And so now you can understand maybe why we have a vulnerability with the heart, why the body in its wisdom said we better have a quick collateral building system of blood vessels to nourish the heart muscle, because by golly, it's got to tick and tick and tick, and it only can repair itself in between the beats. So thump, thump, lub, dub, repair, lub, dub, repair. And so it is high energy. Bring out the paddles. We're talking a very high energy system here. Okay. The heart is the largest user of ATP energy in the body. It must be generated between every heartbeat. And the mitochondria require sugar, oxygen, and certain nutrition like carnitine. It requires fats, magnesium, calcium, coenzyme Q10, B vitamins. I don't have flecainide on that list. It's just not there. But this is what the body needs. And so the heart engine needs for its fuel the natural health bailiwick. It needs the food. It needs a good digestion, that gut microbiome. It needs the foundation of health as the body renders that which is external in the world through the gut into the body, and these nutrients feed the heart. Very simple system. It's been since time immemorial. Now, we're going to run a math equation here. So for those of you who were napping, I know, in trigonometry class, this is made really, really simple. I call it kindergarten math, and here we go. When ATP expenditure exceeds ATP production, that's the cause of disease. Simple enough. Very true fact. Diseases are a dearth of energy. And so if we're in a society of heart disease, we're in a society of people that can't make, can't get, can't utilize, can't manufacture the ATP that keeps the heart cells doing the lubs and the dubs. And for those of you who love this, I should have just put the entire Krebs cycle up here because we all had to memorize it. It was fun. But it's magic. It's an ROI, which means return on investment. One molecule of saccharide, it could be glucose ribose, turns into 36 packets of the chemical energy of life. If oxygen is ample and the waste product, lactic acid, if it is converted to pyruvate, which is normal, natural, if you're not sedentary, that equals an additional 3 packets of ATP. So holy cow, you can have one little molecule. You eat like a little bunny, you eat a little nibble of carrot, a little nibble of radish leaf, and that one molecule of sugar in there can end up giving you 39 packets, or just call it 36 if you want, of ATP. Now that ATP is your lubs and your dubs and everything, and every brain work, every muscle, every activity in the body needs this magic molecule called adenosine triphosphate. And we back up here. You see here, this is the phosphorylation that goes on in the mitochondrial at the top there. Goes on, and bing, 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 we come up to acetyl-CoA, and you see your pyruvate there. We want to get that lactic acid over to pyruvate, feed the acetyl-CoA to hit that big machinery that Dr. Krebs found us. It was not Maynard G., that was Dr. Krebs of the Nobel Prize. And he mapped out this citric acid cycle and showed scientists and certainly to the bane of many students exactly how human life energy, the chemical energy of life, is made. And that makes our electron transport system that runs all the electricity in the body. Wow. And so here we go with another explanation here of the electron transport system that charges the body. And then the crazy thing, exercise adds more ATP. Go, wait a minute, I exercise, I'm tired, I used my ATP, but the back end of that is, it's not the loan shark depleting a person's energy reserves. It's actually creating more life energy. And in the wake of that exercise will come more mitochondria to make more energy. And then the person just bingo comes alive. I got another quiz for you now. It's kind of, this is in review. You know, have you been sleeping or have you been paying attention? Here you go. Most heart attacks, are they caused by A, blocked blood supply to the heart, B, a Charlie horse of the heart muscle, C, high cholesterol, Michael B. Jordan, or Margot Robbie? Okay, your choice. Which one are you going for? Is it A, B, C, D, or E? You got it. You've sussed it out. It is indeed the Charlie horse. The lack of ATP and mitochondrial damage, the metabolic waste, the lactic acid and other acids building up, not being discharged, not being turned into pyruvate. That's where you get your sore muscles. You get the physical heartache, the elephant sitting on your chest. It's a lack of oxygen. And when you have a lack of oxygen, the cells have a backup system, zymosis, and they go into fermentation to make the sugars. And that is an acid-causing process. And excess lactic acid is acidosis. Fermentation here is acidosis. I'm also going to throw a new concept here, and it's the lack of nitric oxide, nitric oxide. There can be a lack of nitric oxide then to dilate the blood vessels and conduct the enzyme systems within the cell. This is reduced blood supply is acidosis. You see that the very thing that Dr. Kern was saying. And then we've had wonderful lectures on the no-ono cycle. Systemic has in their vault of brilliant researchers talking about nitric oxide and then the peroxynitrite spinning based on the research of Dr. Martin Pall, P-A-L-L. And it's just constant free radical inflammation, free radical damage when the nitric oxide gets off. We just we're going to take nitric oxide now. We're going to put it on our shelf right there on the mantle above the fireplace with our other concepts, and we're going to see what to do about it. I'm going to go back to a little bit in the Wayback Machine, 1984. Heart attacks are simply Charlie horses of the heart muscle that's blocked from getting oxygen, fatty acids, and nutrients, and is choking on its own metabolic acidic waste. That was Doc Wheelwright, a name you should be pretty familiar with as you're using some of his formulas and research. And following in his footsteps, Dr. Shane Morris, his grandson, bringing brilliant cellular biology insights to the type of formulas that direct the plight of the cell. And so all this is coming forward now. Acidosis is cell death. Part of the enzyme system, lysosomes, get released and they digest the cell. Now, this is a problem for the heart because you see the word necrosis. So at the time that the heart is blocked, the 16% of people that might get a globule clot stuck in the pipe, that they'll have heart cells die. And it's really hard to get them back. In fact, I don't think the body does regenerate because it doesn't have anything to regenerate the dead cells. And so people have to get a pacemaker and force the pump to pump and so forth. So notice when for lysosomal activity, when they start to digest and destroy, eat up a cell, which is a normal, natural process, because if the cell is damaged, we don't want those mitochondria running around and causing a cancer, a free radical pathology. So this is part of the process, and apoptosis takes over. But look at the pH of 5. Now that's acidic. So again, Dr. Kearns nailed it way back in 1940 and said heart disease is a metabolic disease. I think there's been some champions of that theme more recently in the last 5 or 6 years. It's coming forth and people are going, oh, I got a new idea. Heart disease is a metabolic disease. Yeah, well, we got to think back to Dr. Kearns and other pioneers that corroborated his work have all given us the message that heart disease is a metabolic disease, but it's not being treated as a metabolic disease. How can the bravest, brightest, most elite segment of our population totally miss the boat? I'm not sure what happens. As we've said before, the right ventricle supplies blood to the lungs. The left ventricle supplies blood to the brain and the body. The left ventricle operates with more ATP. It's got to have more. It's richer in ATP. It's got to have more energy. It's got to have more oxygen. And frankly, it can run pretty close to the edge. Again, what's the edge? That's the trade-off between utilization and regeneration. Utilization, regeneration, tick-tock, lub-dub, off it goes, back and forth. It's got to use, expend, bring it back. Use, expend, bring it back. And if there's a glitch in that system, there's acidosis. Acidosis starts causing fermentations and problems. The heart becomes weaker. Your infarcts are mostly left ventricle. They're not occlusions. We said that enough now. Proximal occlusion mostly affects the right ventricle. So simple anatomy, physiology, and irrefutable data tell us that the massive industry pushing statins for cholesterol are only dealing with 16% of the problem. And then the research has already showed us that statins don't make a darn bit of difference. And I know, again, there's research that says, oh, look, they are mildly helpful and things like that if you go. But gosh, you'd have to spend all day looking at those studies to find out that what are the real parameters and how are the conclusions extrapolated. Now, let's look at something here. Up on our shelf, we want to put metabolic syndrome. We all know what this is. I trust we do. This is the syndrome behind heart disease, blood lipids, blood pressure, diabetes, Alzheimer's, cancers. We even have POS here and the NAFLD or whatever, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease that's becoming very much in vogue today, of course, because it's all this metabolic syndrome and the misapplication of sugars. And so here we see that we have a defective oxidation of organic acid. So when acidic is the problem, whether it's lactic acid or whether there's some vinegars, or formic acid, which really kind of stings, citric acid, which unfortunately they dump a lot of that in vitamin supplements, malic acid, which all can be good things at times, oxalic acid, more appropriately, now there's kind of a witch hunt for which foods have oxalates in them, uric acids, which can be involved with kidney stones and maybe an impairment of the gut microbiome to process uric acid, and the tartaric acids, ascorbic acid, which is a form of vitamin C that's sort of estranged from its synergist, and there's like 50 more. Okay. So some people in the clinic like to do organic acid testing, and I just wanted to steer you toward, if you're a person that believes in lab testing, you might want to get on the bandwagon with organic acid testing because it'll show errors of metabolism and B vitamin deficiencies, gut microbiome, irregularities such as gut dysbiosis, fatty acid issues, poor carbohydrate, even neurotransmitter issues, mitochondrial dysfunction. Look at this. You get this beautiful portrait of the body. Free radical damage, inability to detoxify. So you're going to get your MTHFR people on that bandwagon. It all leads to inflammation. And again, the medical sciences will teach us from the cover of Time magazine, I think it was 2011 or 2014, February edition, and it said inflammation is the silent killer. So there's the whole shebang. If you're a shebang kind of person, organic acids, but it's an organic acid, lactic acid in particular, that can be driving heart problems. So let's look at a solution here. Step one, we want to look at the whole body metabolic processes. Now, this is not specific to the heart. This is specific to the broad picture of disease. We have to look at glucose balance, nitric oxide balance. These are our things on the shelf up here. Now we want to look at the free radicals in a balance, the oxidative and the redox. We want to look at pH. Remember the lady had I Love pH t-shirt back on that slide. We want to look at the cell membrane because it's the mitochondrial membrane that's raising all the fuss. And we want to look at the gut microbiome. Why? Because everything is going back to the gut microbiome. If a person has an issue, there's a problem in the gut microbiome. It's becoming a huge campaign. And we want to look at hormonal influences with the hormone vitamin D3. And I'm not going to belabor vitamin D3. I'm not going to belabor in this talk because I've done it in preceding talks about probiotics and prebiotics. We've been very thorough. If you miss that, talk with Nicole at Systemic and get your free pass to those absolutely brilliant lectures. And here we go. If you're not familiar with the product Sinulin, what can I say? You should need to hold on to your hat because it's brilliant. And there's a patented form of chromium that will get glucose in the cells. It's a dual aspect chromium. There's an herbal array, which I love. I always want to munch on the herbs first. Gymnema sylvestre, cinnamon. Now, this is a special form of cinnamon. You're not going to get it putting cinnamon on your toast. But this cinnamon has massive research. Mamordica, Charantia, Pterocarpus, Marsupium, that's the one to be hopping over. Pomegranate, fenugreek, angelica, baobab. There's wonderful, wonderful science on these herbs. And it's all about, let me go back to this so you can be staring at the right slide. It's all about getting glucose to move through the mitochondrial membrane. This is where insulin resistance happens. And when the cells become disturbed, it doesn't matter what membrane is putting up the drawbridge gate, but that insulin resistance leaves the glucose in the blood where it becomes inflammatory. It drives obesity. It drives inflammation. The arteries suffer. The heart suffers. The brain suffers. It's all coming. And this is why the doctors are trying to tell us all diseases, all chronic degenerative diseases, now we're looking at diabetes and so forth, are mitochondrial diseases. We're really all about fixing the mitochondria. Another inside the cell is the role of nitric oxide. Now, this is going to dilate blood vessels, get more blood to the heart, lowers blood pressure, increases blood supply, increases oxygen, helps to make more ATP, does a lot of good things, particularly germane to the heart. Very important. And here we go. We have the formula of Venta that supports the balance of what's, INOS, ENOS, the nitric oxide synthase enzyme systems for nitric oxide to perform better. Backing up this, there is a wonderful research study, a review of many other studies. So I love these, synoptic studies where they look at 25, 30, because then I don't have to look at them all. I do, though. But they're just saying here, a review of all the current studies that these scientists can find. They're going to look at the benefits of nitric oxide precursors, such as arginine, right, the amino acid. We're going to look at nitric oxide precursors, like red beets, that support health. And we know that if we crank up ATP, that the damage is caused by free radicals. And so we have a couple of things here to look at. Part of the correction of the no-ono cycle, the insidious cascade of free radicals that starts self-perpetuating inside the cell until the cell is destroyed. That cell is begging for the antioxidants, the glutathione, the catalase, the superoxide dismutase, to quench those free radicals and give it a chance to regenerate. So once that mitochondrial DNA is damaged, we have rogue cells and a lot of problems. We have cells that have to go into apoptosis, which you might know that word means self-destruction. And here we go. We have EPIC and G cell. G cell is the glutathione. EPIC has the glutathione support with catalase, superoxide dismutase, a host of vitamins and herbs. Wonderful tools coming off the shelf. And we had the membrane health, and this is where we have to look at that phosphorylation process, and we want to look at the phospholipids. And here, while everybody else is out there taking one or two phospholipids, here you can have 9 of them. A huge advantage to get deeper into the various structures and support of the cell membrane. And this directly impacts metabolic syndrome, because with sinulin and the cell membrane, now you can get insulin resistance shaken off and get induction through the cell membrane so the body can burn it and run that Krebs cycle. This has a very remarkable phospholipid in it called cardiolipin, very rare. Definitely worth looking at of what cardio, look at the first 6 letters, what cardiolipin can do for the body. I want to bring out an overview here as we now have a few tools to support the mitochondria, like the energy formulas. We have the glucose, we have the membrane, we have the free radicals, we have the nitric oxide, and you can pull those as you need them. As you assess a patient, you can start bringing in the true food, the true healing for the body. Now, here's our good buddy Confucius. He says, wow, what mind had to think this deeply when we're dealing with a medical system in this country now with Merck, the Merck manual. I don't know, there's like 16,000 diseases or something. There's a huge amount of diseases. And this guy comes along way back when. It wasn't that life was more simple then. He just had a higher overview. No, this guy, one smart cookie, only one cause of disease. Okay, have you thought of it now? Do you know what is the one cause of disease? According to Confucius, that's congestion. And this is where the system of acupuncture evolved to relieve congestion, to open up the meridians. We see in the blood that congestion, kind of rouleau and kind of amalgam agglutinations of cells, clumping, and so forth, are problematic. And then we also find that Confucius not only was happy to point out there's just one cause of disease, and if you really want to think about it, how can you name a disease that doesn't have some congestive, whether it's bioenergetic or whether it's congestion within the cell? Congestion within the cell is inflammation, lack of ATP. Probably Confucius didn't know an adenosine phosphate molecule from a rice wine molecule, but he sure knew the general principle, and there's only one cure. Have you figured out what that is? All right, it's going to have to be the opposite of congestion, so that's called circulation. Now we're back to our heart and really needing to take care of people. So there's one formula that's all in the whole shebang. And here we want to take all these items that we've put on the shelf: the defective oxygenation of organic acids, the nitric oxide pathways, inflammation, 4-ATP glucose, cell energy, free radical damage, the general nutrients, the herbs that have their own compatibility with the human organism, the herbs that are the true medicines for the human being. Because they grew with similar suffering. They grew in gravity. They grew under the sun. They grew fighting the wind. They organized their molecules. And then we have here the HQ, heart energy formula. The heart's mitochondrial codes reside in the mtDNA and the nuclear DNA. This process, energy recovery, is multiple times a minute that has to occur. There's a lot of activity in those heart cells. Bang, 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 fire, fire, fire. We do not do well with the reduction in ATP because it results in damage. And this damage is congestion, and Confucius say it just right. This formula has coenzyme Q10, D-ribose, niacin, magnesium, nattokinase, hawthorn, RNA, DNA, heart substance, carnitine without the V. And so many of the nutrients. So back in the old days, if someone said, oh, I just had a mild heart attack and I'm ready to eat right and exercise and I'm ready to take nutrients and I need to recover, I can't have my ticker going out, I would have to say, okay, bring your wheelbarrow. Here's your coenzyme Q10. Here's your D-ribose. Here's your niacin. Here's your magnesium. Let's do nattokinase to thin the blood. Hawthorn's good for everything with the heart, and the carnitine and so forth. And I carry the wheelbarrow full of supplements off and prosper. And it's such a beautiful thing to work with people, both with panacea and with Hygeia to work with the heart, because the heart has built-in mechanisms to self-heal. How can we retard the heart from healing itself if we correct the cause? And so I'm just going to tell you a little bit about these ingredients. I don't want to belabor this now. D-ribose, the mitochondrial genes love this for fuel. It helps with recovery after exercise. It helps people with congestive heart. Someone says, I have congestive heart failure. I've been diagnosed. Yeah, D-ribose, HQ, improves heart function. You can't beat that. L-carnitine, that supports the ATP. It's part of the big cycle. It helps detoxify the wastes that are acidic. It transports lipids so the fat can convert into powerful glucose and do it slowly, not like eating sugar. And we want to get our energy from the powerhouse of the fats, and it's got L-carnitine and coenzyme Q10. They're good buddies, and they make these myocardial adenine nucleotides, which are the process of how the heart heals itself. Oh my goodness! And here's some research to back it up. And here you go, the yummy nattokinase. If you're not familiar with this in studies, nattokinase beat the blood thinners. Big Pharma has not equaled what nattokinase can do for blood thinning, and blood thinning without the side effects. So here you go. It's just good old stringy soybean, fermented, of course. But here we go. It's the blood thinner, cleans artifacts, dissolves clots. I mean, they got an enzyme that'll go in and start munching away at fibrins and the clots and sticky stuff. And again, it helps people with congestive heart issues. It's so powerful, it can even dissolve scar tissue. And that can be a big issue with people that have had a little mild infarct because they have scarring affecting their hearts. And maybe a small percentage of that could be kind of smoothed out and worked over. So this is a powerful, happy ingredient. We have the coenzyme Q10. And if you really see the need in someone, I mean, heaven forbid if the person was on a statin, it's just robbing coenzyme Q10 right out of their liver. And that is a deadly and severe issue of damage to the body. And so such a person, I'd be looking at having maybe 200 milligrams of coenzyme Q10. And then, so I'm using HQ, and then for those people, they've got to get on higher amounts of coenzyme Q10 because they start complaining how tired they are, and they keep popping their pills and feeling worse. And here we are, we have something that can help because we understand the damage that's being done to them, and we can offset that. Niacin, magnesium, decreased risk of cardiovascular disease. That's a good reason for anybody to take this. Lowers cholesterol, which should have an L on the end. Decreases fibrinogen, the sticky blood. Magnesium, well, I think we all, had our lessons on the mighty magnesium, which is needed for not only ATP energy, but for blood pressure, and magnesium for the muscles, and to prevent abnormal clotting and so forth. All these things are important. Another formula now, H-Heart, was made by Doc Wheelwright, and it has more of the RNA, DNA, heart factors, B vitamins, some wonderful herbs. So secondarily to HQ, we might want to bolster a person for a time with the H-Heart. And then just an all-time favorite, the paprika. There's an entire story about the Italian paprika that Doc Wheelwright discovered, and it's more of a heart-shaped pepper than in the picture here, and it's delicious. And the hawthorn berry and all the benefits for the heart and for circulation here. HCV helps clean out the arteries and blood vessels over time. And so we just want to say now that we have a broad view of working at the cellular metabolics because heart disease is a metabolic disease. Secondly, we have one specific powerful formula that is sort of the whole kitchen sink, the whole wheelbarrow full of the nutrients that directly support the heart. And so I have here so many broken hearts. We have what's needed. We have the understanding. We have the nutrients and the plan. Again, like so many things, it's our belief, our strength, incumbent on us to help people with the true medicines, the true nutrients, the very molecules the body needs, and trust that the body can heal itself. It can regenerate. We've been shown scientifically, thanks to Dr. Carell, that the heart can regenerate, and it needs nutrients and the right pH and the minerals, and away it goes. So we have both the panacea and we have the hygiene. It's our responsibility to carry these things forward. Thank you so much. I've loved sharing some of this little quirky take on really the simplicity of working with the heart, a subject that has been made massively complex. But these are the fundamental nutrients, whether the person has had a heart attack, whether they have atrial fibrillation. Again, fibrillation is the energy system gone haywire. It has more of the electrical neural connections, go right to those formulas. We have the ability to custom design out of a large array of systemic formulas to support people in many different aspects of the way that things can affect them because of their genetics, their epigenetics, their lifestyles, their diets, all the things that we have the good word to share. Thank you for letting me share these insights. I hope you found something of great value that you'll be able to take to your patients and do some good work with them. I look forward to hearing from you. Take care.